Hi, hello. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for being on. Thank you for your time. So,
Yeah.
can you start by telling us just a bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Yes, of course. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. I work with a lot of new moms and parents. That's kind of been my specialty over the years. But I also do parent coaching and child sleep coaching, and recently have started some online programs in working with moms who've experienced pregnancy or birth trauma. So I work, as you can tell, are mainly in the parenting field, and mainly with moms. I would say is my uh, the main group of people there. And I'm a mother myself. I have two kids who are 11 and 4. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of a gap there. It took us a little while to feel ready to have another one. so, um, yeah, and we're here in California, Los Angeles, California.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sunny LA. And so, can you tell us a bit more about your family, what you guys are like, what you like to do?
Yeah. So let's see. I have been married. This will be our 16th year of
Wow.
marriage, which I know is crazy. It doesn't feel like that, which is a good thing, I think. So it doesn't feel like it's been that long. We still have a great time together and are best friends. And so, let's see, my daughter is 11 and in fifth grade, and she is very spunky and strong, and I love all of those qualities, although sometimes it can be challenging when you're parenting those qualities. But she's amazing. And then my 4-year-old son, who is very young for his age, because probably it's mainly our fault because we baby him because he is our last. But and that will be it. There will be no more. Two seems to be plenty to handle. And yeah, we love being here in Los Angeles for the most part. It can be a tricky city, but my husband's is an actor, so he's in the industry out here, so that can also be a little up and down and tricky. But I love it. I grew up here in Los Angeles, so I know the city very well, and my whole family is here, and so it's great to I feel very very at home here.
Is your oldest pretty helpful since she's so much older?
You know, yeah, for the most part. I always say, like, she vacillates between, like, mainly like wanting to just, because he's so cute, like she just wants to like snuggle him and squeeze him and help out with him, to then, like, occasionally wanting to just murder him because he's driving her crazy and wants to get into all this stuff. And it's just very they're both, I always say, like, I hate to make it like a gender thing, but if there were like the most stereotypical girl and the most stereotypical little boy, like, those are my kids. So it's like she's just like all glitter and pink and sparkles and little trinkets, and he's just like wants to come in and just like make vehicles out of all of it. so So yeah, she's helpful for the most part. Sometimes it's hard, there's the regular sibling stuff that because of the age gap, I think what's challenging sometimes is that she thinks he gets away with a lot, and obviously trying to explain that the expectations for an 11-year-old versus a 4-year-old, are a little different. So depending on her mood, because she's also a preteen, so that the mood is kind of coming in and out. But yeah, depending on her mood, she's able to kind of either take that in or not take it in.
Yeah, come on. Excuse me, my daughter's gonna get yogurt. I have a
Cute.
3-year-old and a 6-year-old.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I was gonna say, so you talking about explaining, yes, you can get a yogurt. You talking about explaining the expectations, that's what we go through.
Yeah.
Even 3 years apart. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. It's always unfair, for the most part, whatever, with the youngest,
Oh my gosh. That's why the other one ran in for a yogurt. Okay, girls, get your yogurt and go sit down. Mm-hmm. Thank you, my love. You got it. Excuse me, y'all.
Mom duty.
Baby.
It never ends. Yeah.
Okay. No matter how you think you prepare, they always find a way.
Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Yeah. And there's no such thing, right? Especially now being home.
Okay. Okay. So did you guys always know you wanted to have kids?
We did. I mean, I certainly always did. I was, my husband's also 15 years older than me. So there, although he doesn't look it or act it. So I think, that's a benefit. But, I mean, I always knew I wanted to be a mother, and, we had certainly talked about it happening at some point. So it was always on the table for us to eventually have a family.
Yeah. And with the age gap that you said you guys weren't really prepared. So what was that?
It was a couple of things. One, I think, was just as and I think so many parents feel, time goes by really fast. And so I do remember I got pregnant when my daughter was about 5.5, and then she was like a little over 6 when I had my son. So I remember just turning to my husband one day, like when she was like 5, around that time, and just saying, oh my, like, if we're going to do this, like, because we wanted to have a second and we were talking about it, but I was like, hey, we got to kind of get on this now, because it's been 5 years. So it did, part of it was that it just happened to go by so fast, and I feel like we didn't really think about it that much. But I think other parts of it were just that it was great. Like it was really great, just the three of us. And I think even though I knew I wanted to have another child, and we knew we wanted to give her a sibling, I remember really struggling for a bit, even when I was pregnant. Like there was like a excited about having another one, but also feeling like it will never be like this again. And I think a lot of moms experience that sometimes with their second, is that it's a mixture of excitement, but also this loss of what you knew to before, what your family was before the next one. And so, and that was just such a, it wasn't always easy, but it was such a precious time, just the 3 of us too. So I knew that would change. And I knew also that given that she was a little older, that she would have this memory of being an only child for quite some time, and that it would definitely shake some things up. So, and it did, in good ways and sometimes in challenging ways. So,
was she always interested in being a big sister?
She always wanted to be. She would ask me all the time. So yeah, so she was so excited when I told her I was pregnant. She just loved having like a new baby in the house. Like she was, just obsessed with him. So it wasn't really until he had maybe hit like 2 that she started to, which is a normal around that age, where, they start to turn into like little people, and they're walking and talking and getting into things. And that was kind of more, I would say that was more when the challenges between the 2 of them. So, but pre that, it was pretty good.
And so how long had y'all been married before? About 4 years before you had your daughter?
About, it was 5 years by the time she was born. Yeah.
And so what was the conception and birth journey like for you?
Well, it was, so with her, it was funny. I happen to be very blessed in that I have not had any fertility issues. In fact, I tend to, if anything, I'm like both times with them, it was like one try and we were done. And so, it was really fortunate just because I work with so many moms who obviously, and I know Kate, you deal with this too, just in terms of that being a struggle that was not, fortunately for us, a struggle. So with Emma, my daughter, it wasn't really planned, but we were sort of loose about it. And little did I know that it just took that one time. And I felt pregnant pretty soon after that. Like I would say like a month, like 4 weeks later, I was like pretty sure I was pregnant because my body just immediately started shifting and changing and I could feel it. And so, so it was exciting. I mean, it was totally one of those things from like a movie where I took like 10 pregnancy tests because I didn't, I needed to be sure that what I was reading was real. And pregnancy was pretty good with her. I was sick, it was all the normal stuff. I unfortunately with her had a very difficult and challenging and traumatic birth. So that was one of the, in this program that I have right now with the pregnancy and birth trauma, it certainly has stemmed from my own experiences in both pregnancy and birth trauma. So, but pregnancy with her was fine. Birth was not so great. It was just, I ended up having to have an emergency C-section with her. Yeah. It just was one of those, like, she would not come out. Nothing that my body was essentially supposed to be doing, like, was happening. So, it was a lot of, and unfortunately, I hear this from so many moms since I work in this area with so many moms, is this story over and over again, particularly with your first, you don't really often know. You're not as, like, looking back, I wish I had been a little bit more knowledgeable about hospital births and, and just what the different, what possibilities are. I mean, I really went, like, one of my big things that I like preach about for the most part and talk about is that we're just not prepared in the ways that we should be, in that, you usually will go to like a birth prep class at the hospital. And for the most part, that's kind of all that is like typically offered to most moms. And so I was shocked. Like, I was completely shocked when my body just wasn't working in the way that I thought it would have worked or should have worked. And so I was just in labor for about 36 hours and I ended up pushing for about 3 hours, and they tried to force up her out and that was not working. And she was big. She was 9'2". So and then I got really sick and got a high fever, and she, her heart rate started to drop. And so then it was like after 3 hours of pushing, it was like rushed into an emergency C-section. And I was so delirious at that point by the time they took her out. I don't remember this. It's just what my husband tells me. But apparently I tried to like get up from the table. I started like flipping out and didn't, and tried to get up. So they had to let me turn that off. They had to strap me down and knock me out. And so I didn't get to see her probably until many, many hours later. So I didn't get to give her first feeding, or luckily my husband was there with her and was able to hold her, although she had to go into observation because she was born with a pretty high fever, since I had one too. So it was a very shocking experience. I didn't know something like that could happen, honestly, like at the time. So even though I know it's unfortunately very common with a lot of moms, heard that story.
What was going through your mind, like mentally, emotionally, as you're going through the labor and you're realizing your body's not responding? Your body's not performing the way you would want it to.
Yeah, I remember being really confused, and I kept expecting like I just remember like the staff, even though they were really lovely, like just acting as if like it was nothing. And I remember thinking, like, I feel like something's wrong. Like, I feel like this is not normal, and nobody's talking to me. Nobody's telling me anything. And so I just felt like I couldn't get information, and no one was really giving me information. It was just more like, just try to rest, or keep pushing. And I could tell, like, something was not right. Like, it just did not feel right. That's all it's sort of the only way I can describe it, is that it just didn't feel okay. And I remember, like, part way through the pushing, thinking, like, I know this is supposed to be hard, but I don't think it's supposed to be this hard, because what I felt like was that I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. Like, that's what it started to feel like. And part of that, I think, was just the exhaustion. There was a lot of medication that was being given to me over that course of the 36 hours. I was, just borderline delirious. Any pain stuff had worn off at that point, and it had no energy. So I remember thinking, like, I'm going to die and something's wrong. And the worst thing, part of the trauma that I had, that I kind of had to work through, was, like, the worst thought that I had was, like, I don't want to do this. Like, just let's forget it. Like, I don't want to have this baby. I'm done. Like, I can't, obviously this is too hard. So I remember thinking that, and I remember that being the last thought when they pulled her out, was, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And I think that's probably when I flipped out and kind of went a little berserk, and they had to knock me out. So, I mean, looking back, I obviously understand it was all of those things combined, right, that were kind of happening to my body and mind at the time.
Right, because my birth wasn't nearly, because my birth wasn't nearly that intense, and I definitely thought I was going to die, and I definitely remember feeling like I'm never doing this again.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, that going back to my other point of, like, being ready to have another, that was part of it too. Like, I can't, if that is even a possibility, like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not going through that again. I will not go through that again.
And so how did you get over that trauma?
Well, it's such a great question, and it's why I started this program again, because I don't think that I did, honestly. What happens, and I think what happens with so many moms is, whether you have a traumatic birth or not, or whether you just give birth, is that, which has its own, even if it's not as difficult or traumatic, you're still gone through this major thing. And then they hand you a baby, and, and they're like, okay, go on your merry little way, and just know what to do. Right. And so you're not given any time, really, as a new mom to process anything, or to understand or piece together, because you're just thrown into it. And so there's not really any resources that are given to new moms in terms of, hey, if you're dealing with this or struggling with this, here's what might be going on, here's someone to call. It just, there was none of that. And so I did suffer from some postpartum depression and anxiety for probably the first few months, not as intense as some women I know have gone through, but certainly had moments of just feeling like the same thought again was, like, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think I can do this. I think maybe I can just slip away. Right. So, and it's hard to know if that was a direct result of the birth trauma, or if that was just hormonal, or who knows, right? Or if it was a combination. But I didn't really deal with it. And so I, for years, I would say, struggled in, with more anxiety probably than looking back, than I think, definitely more anxiety than I should have needed to struggle with, in terms of just worrying about her and feeling probably more controlling in some ways too. Like, I just felt like I needed to control so many things about her schedule and her sleep, and there were just so many things that I think, because I had felt so out of control for that, which I didn't really piece together at the time. But when I finally started to work on it, which was not until, I have to say, not until after my son was born. So, because I had a very challenging pregnancy with him. And then after birth, I hit probably a couple months after, or actually it was longer than that, probably like 6 months into it, I hit a very, very serious wall. I mean, it wasn't like a nervous breakdown, but it was certainly like I went into a very, very deep depression, like one that I had never experienced before, and realized that it was just a combination of the fear. With her, it was like the fear of me dying and something happening to her as well. And when I was pregnant with my son, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. So I had cancer when I was pregnant with him. And so that added on a whole other complication to that. So it was obviously when I hit that wall, all of the fear of death and something happening to me and something happening to my kids, obviously, I started to finally piece together and look at, and when I stepped back from it, I thought, well, okay, like this makes sense, right? Like this makes so much sense that I have been feeling this way and why I'm feeling this way right now. So I went back into therapy and had a great therapist that I worked through a lot of the trauma with, and just had me kind of go over these things, telling the story about it over and over again. And I just started to do my own spiritual work as well, in terms of just having more of a spiritual program of like prayer and meditation and surrender and all of that, and exercise. Like I just started to do the things that I hadn't been doing really, because again, you just get so caught up in the early in the years as a parent that you forget about yourself, or you put yourself to the side. And I don't recommend it, which is why I, have built this program for these moms. Was, it took me a long time to learn this stuff and to move through this stuff. So if I can share some of that healing process, and the program that I created is based on like a therapeutic trauma healing recovery program that I also trained in. So it's kind of based in that. So, which was also very helpful for me too. So, yeah, it's just, unfortunately it happens with a lot of women. So, and a lot of moms, and just in terms of whether you went through traumatic birth or not, I just think there's moments in parenting and in motherhood in particular that are really, I don't, we make it through, but I don't think we often like deal with the effects of it. So.
And Sasha, did you notice if when you were dealing with all these different things happening, the control, did the temperament of your baby have anything to kind of play on that as well, or you can tell?
It's such a great question. My daughter Emma was a really easy baby. Like I was very lucky with that, thank God, because she was a good sleeper. She was pretty easygoing, and I think one of the things that I struggled with, though, is that because of my own stuff that I hadn't dealt with, particularly, and the way it was coming out, like manifesting as control, that I somehow have contributed to her like anxiety now, because she struggles with anxiety, and and sometimes I, of course, it's that mom guilt of like, well, maybe if I hadn't been so worried about her schedule all the time. Like, so it was like the complete opposite when it came to my son. It was also like a relatively, I mean, I have to say, like, they were both pretty good. I don't want to say good, but they were like relatively easy compared to some of the moms that I work with and friends that I've had. So, so it helped. That helped me a lot. I think that, and again, with so many moms that I've worked with who have been through traumatic birth or pregnancy, and then have really like challenging babies who are, you know, either colicky or fussy or, you know, not sleeping, that create, you know, that just contributes so much more to like the delirium and the guilt and the postpartum anxiety and depression stuff too. So it does impact, their temperament certainly does impact how you can feel. So I didn't know, luckily I was pretty lucky that my kids were, they started challenging me in their later years. Not so much as babies. Yeah.
So more to come.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit more about your program?
Yes. Yeah. The pregnancy and birth trauma one.
Mm-hmm.
But yes. So like I said, I developed it out of my own experience. It was certainly something that when I thought about it's online, and we meet weekly for about an hour to an hour and a half. And there is a 6-week healing process. So they have 6 modules that are based that I created, and that's based on this type of trauma therapy called cognitive processing therapy. And it was commonly used more with soldiers in the past, although people are using it a lot more now, just with anybody. But since I wasn't doing therapy with them, it's a coaching program, I kind of tweaked it a bit too, to be more specific to the birth and pregnancy trauma. So it takes them through a step-by-step healing process that we then talk about and go over in our calls each week. And then as a bonus, or in addition to all of that too, I have like a 6-week process that I called the Living Your Best Life process. And so in addition to working through all the trauma, they also get to work on things, work on some positive things and work towards some things that maybe they have been putting to the side as a mom. And so we talk about things like time management and spirituality and exercise and diet and all of that kind of, so those are all like incorporated in that as well. So there's they have both of those that they can work through. And then there's an online a private Facebook group too, that we're all kind of connecting with and talking together as they're working through it and sharing what because this stuff, it brings up a lot of stuff too. So I'm there to kind of manage that and guide that as well too for them, in case it can trigger, it can activate a lot of other traumas and wounds too that have come up. So I'm kind of careful to monitor that stuff. But it's a really great program. We just finished this last one, and it was just a beautiful experience to move through this with these moms and to have this shared experience together. So
yeah, it sounds really cool. It sounds like you've been able to separate, because when we become moms, we become very attached to that identity. Like you said, you kind of forget about yourself. It's all about this baby. It's all about trying to regain some control while still feeling like you're being super mom. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like in your program, you've been able to give women a safe space to learn to separate the mom identity from their true identity.
Yes. Yeah. Which I think is a big thing, because yes, we are moms and that is part of our identity, but I believe that a lot of the guilt and the depression and the anxiety that I see so often comes from this like very quick shift once the baby is born into, now I'm just a mom, and this is, and now I have to just be selfless all the time, and everything is, for my kids, and that's all that I think about, and that's all that I do, and I'm exhausted, and like all of this stuff that we've all experienced, but it can take over if you're not careful. So it certainly did for me, and that was part of the reason why I also incorporated this other part of the program, was to just get back to who we are, just as women, as people, and putting aside the parenting part of it. Like, how do we kind of get back to our core and our source, and knowing that we're not going to be exactly the same people that we used to be pre-children, because we're different now, but who are we now, and what do we want now, and move away from this idea that we think that we can't have that somehow just because we're a mom, right? So it's like getting part of your life back too, and being able to essentially say, like, I can be both. Like, I can be a mom and I can have that be an aspect of my identity, but it doesn't have to be everything. I can also have my own life, my own business, like whatever, I don't know, whatever it is that you want, right? So it's like moving away from that restriction.
Yeah, it's such a common thing. When I work with other moms, it's more of, what can I do for my kids? And then they kind of forget themselves as part of the equation. It's like, what about the kids? Like, I want to make sure they're good, but they're first. And so let's not do chiropractic care for me. Let's pause myself first. But they're the foundation of everything in their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so easy to slip into that. Like, you don't even know you're in it until you're so deep into it sometimes. Like, it's so easy because so much of it is instinctual, right? Like, as a mom, like, we're just instinctually doing what we are supposed to be doing. We're feeding them, we're taking care of them. Like, we don't have time to think about it. And then all of a sudden it goes back to what I always say it's the old oxygen mask, analogy of like, well, at some point
first.
Yeah. If I am not able to breathe, then you cannot breathe. So, I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Like, if I cannot,
that's what I was going to ask you. I'm sorry, y'all, these connections.
Yeah. I love it.
But yeah, exactly, the oxygen mask scenario. And so I was thinking, like, as you were speaking, that I'm sorry, baby, I'll be there in a minute. Okay, Gabby, we'll bring her back. Okay, thank you. They're playing Minecraft and they have pets in Minecraft, and apparently one of the pets just died. I'm dealing with a crisis right now. I'm sorry.
It's a big deal. We'll bring her back.
So I was like, we'll get her back. We will get her back.
Oh my goodness.
But as you were speaking, what it did dawn on me, because that's exactly how I felt. I'm a portrait photographer and I work with a lot of moms. I hear that all the time, how even in the beginning they'll be very gung-ho about the maternity and the newborn, but it's all because they're trying to get it in on baby. And then about what I'm learning now, about 4 or 5 years, they're like, forget a baby photo shoot. I forgot about myself. What can we do about me? And so what I've come to learn is that there's a balance. There's balance, like you said, because for us to care for ourselves, part of caring for ourselves is feeling like our last interview, she said that if you're not growing, you're dying. And as mothers, we feel like we need to continually grow in our motherhood, and if we're not constantly doing our best to be a good mother, we do feel like, well, what am I here for? I gave birth to this child, I need to care for it. So what do you think is the key to finding the balance of growing as a mother, but still growing as a human and like who you are to your core?
Yeah, it is. That's such a great question, because it's hard. It's hard to know what that balance is. And I think it's different for every mom too. I always like to take that into consideration. Like, I think every woman is different and every family is different, and obviously every child is different. So people have different needs. But I think that one of the things I always suggest is and what I think we move away from after the baby is born is checking in with ourselves, right? Like just even noticing like what am I feeling right now, and why am I feeling that way? And I think unfortunately it often gets dismissed too, with particularly with new moms, as well, I'm feeling this way because I'm hormonal, I'm feeling this way because I'm sleep deprived, and those are true. Like it's not that those things are not real, but they get dismissed, and what happens is that those become sort of traumatic dismissals as well, because it's like, well, but I'm still feeling this way, right? And so and I think we're the first ones to dismiss it, like often, with ourselves, is that, well, it's just because of this, it's just because of that, and I'll get to that later. And so and we're not checking in. We're not really looking at what might be going on, and we're not acknowledging that we might need more help, or that maybe we have questions, or maybe we just need some more guidance on this. And I think one of the things too with moms is that we have this idea of like martyrdom, like that we have to somehow like suffer. So I think we have this idea as moms that we also have to be martyrs and suffer through things, and that asking for help or needing help is somehow going to be associated with weakness or not being a good enough mom, and that comes from a lot of just pressures that cultural pressures and family pressures and just our own pressures. I think as women that we think we have to kind of take all of that on. So it's checking in with yourself about that too, and not feeling like you need to do it all, because it's going to catch up with you at some point. So that's probably the biggest thing there, is just being able to touch base with yourself and check in. If you can do that on a consistent basis and really like sit in some kind of stillness. And I know a lot of moms are like, I don't have the time, I can't do it. But, I always say, like, if you have 2 minutes, like take 2 minutes, take 3 minutes, like you can find it. You just have to prioritize it, right?
Yes.
That's it.
And so my last question for you, and Kate, this actually would go for you too. What do y'all what are some signs you guys can give people, moms, especially new moms who first-time moms, who probably don't know what to recognize as far as them neglecting themselves, and then close loved ones who can say, hey, love, I noticed that you're kind of not caring for yourself. Can I support you right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say for new moms that even if if you are experiencing hormonal shifts or just exhaustion, and all of that is normal, that I would still encourage all moms to reach out for some sort of support, whether that be in like a mom's group, or with a therapist, or with a coach, or just a friend, so that you're not so isolated. I think the isolation and the shame and the guilt around feeling certain things or thinking certain things really also contribute to how we feel overall. And so I would just encourage you, like nothing, all the thoughts, all the feelings are completely normal. You just need to talk about them with somebody. You just need to know that they're normal, and you need to know that it's okay to think that and to feel that, and that you're not alone. And to really just have a space. I just think a space to be able to kind of move through these things are so important. So and if you're a friend or a loved one that are also experiencing the mom who might be saying, like, I'm fine, I don't need any help, that would also be an indication of, if appropriate, to kind of step in and say, like, well, I'm not asking you what you need for help. I'm just going to help you, right? Like, I'm just going to like, let me take the baby for a little bit, or let me make you some food, or why don't you go out on a walk? Or, because I think that's the other thing, is that everybody with such good intentions comes to new moms and is like, what do you need? And and no one's really like, but everyone's also not paying attention to like the mom too. It's like, there's not that question of like, well, how are you holding up? And like, is there something, let me do this for you. Let me give this to you. And I remember after my son was born, like everybody was sending gifts and it was so sweet. But like one of our friends like sent me a gift card for a massage, and I was like, this is the best gift ever. Like, I don't need any more baby clothes. I don't need anything else. Like, like screw that. Like this is exactly like, it was like so spot on of like, you deserve this. And that was like the new baby gift for me. And I thought that there should be more of that,
Yeah.
Isn't that so interesting? It's like once the baby is born, it's like, whoop, everything shift focus to the baby.
Yeah.
Yes, it's important.
It's not about the mom anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're still there because it's a foundation of, what's next. It's the growth of what's next. So like you're tagging along what you're saying, it's like knowing and being aware. Sometimes from what I see all the moms too, and what you're speaking of as well, they're so engulfed in the moment, like stuck in that moment to care for the baby, and so is everyone else, right? So when you got that gift card, I was like, oh, what about yourself? Very subtly saying, what about you? Do you want to, without even asking. It's just like, here's one, go.
Right. Yeah. And it was somebody that came to my house too. That was the best part about it. I was like, this woman deserves like, and she didn't even have kids. A friend that sent this to me, I was like, you're going to be a good mom because like, you know exactly where it's at.
You understand.
Like you understand. It was like, I can't get out of the house and you're just sending it to me. Right. And so that was like, and I think it's just the acknowledgement. Like I remember just feeling like so acknowledged and like seen too, like as a new mom, like, oh, you're thinking about how I'm feeling during all of this and thinking about what might be nice for me. And again, it's just like, it's not that people's intentions are bad. It's just that they don't think about that. And yes, everything's focused on the baby. And even in your relationship, it's like you guys are just like switching off. And so you can't really, it's hard to even do that for each other inside the partnership because you're both so
like in it.
Exhausted. Yeah, and so in it. So
yeah,
it's so nice to have that acknowledgement from others.
Because when I do house calls, some of my I grew to be friends are like, I would never ask, go to a chiropractor outside like during the first couple months for sure, because I don't want to go outside. I don't want to do all that stuff. If you came to me, I definitely rather have that, or else I wouldn't even go. Right. And their baby was like suffering and all these different things, all the issues, challenges are happening. Mm-hmm. But then the mom's like, I can't do one more thing.
Yeah.
Like it's just not happening.
Exactly. Yes.
So I totally, I get it to an extent, obviously seeing everything going on. And most of the time it's not just me, helping the baby, it's me being there. Like that I felt was the main thing. Me being there and having someone for them to talk with and just share that moment.
Yeah. I mean, holding space. I mean, it's really like, that's like such a profound thing. And we think, I always say like, it doesn't need, like these gestures don't need to be like big grand gestures where you're, buying the mama stroller, it really is just like, can you sit next to her and just, have your presence be there and listen. And that it's such a profound experience just to be able to do those simple things, and those moments of acknowledgement and validation are huge for moms, but particularly new moms too. Yeah.
So as we wrap this up, Tiara, did you have any more questions before I go on to our next segment? So this is the funnest part, I think. The second funnest part. So it's basically the good, bad, and the ugly. And so what's the good, bad, and the ugly that you believe that people, parents, new moms, new parents in general, should know, want to know, prepared to know about it? So the good, bad, and the ugly.
Okay, let's see. Well, I think again, like I think that new moms, new parents should have some sort of, I don't want to like prep parents for like trauma, but like it's like, that there should be like resources, right? Like there should be like a list that's like, listen, here's the, like some sort of realistic like expectation in terms of just like, it's going to be great. but it might also be hard. And if it gets hard, like here's some people to call, like here's some things that were helpful. Like I feel like doctors should have, OBGYN should have this, like hospitals should have this. I just feel like there should be more resources. But if if I were talking, and when I talk to my moms that I work with and all of that, like, or new, about expecting moms, like I think that it's really important to normalize all of it. Like if you feel this way, or if this comes up, like don't be ashamed, like don't feel bad about it, right? So there's preparing for that, and knowing that, again, like when those things do come up after the baby is born, that it's okay, like you're not crazy for wanting to fly to Mexico. It's not, it doesn't mean you don't love your baby. It just means that like you're completely overwhelmed, and that's totally normal. And you'll have those points in parenthood, like probably forever, where you're just like, I'm done, I'm out. I can't do this.
Because it's good to be aware of that too. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. To just be aware of that. Because again, like the guilt and the shame that comes with being a mom too. It's like, oh God, what a terrible mom I am for like thinking that. But it's like,
can I actually add something to that?
Yeah.
Because something that's worked well in our home, and that I've seen other moms be really amazed by. When I say I talk to my children as if I'm talking to the two of you, yes. And I explain myself like, look, this is where mom's at right now. Mom is stressed out, yes. And I have to do X, Y, and Z, and I still need to feed you, and you still want to go to the park. So if all of this is going to happen, mom needs some space.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so true.
And they're like, oh, okay, mom, let's go so we can get this park time.
Right. So I can get what I want. Yeah.
Right. And I've learned if I talk to them like that, like, look, I'm trying to be that mom you want me to be, but mommy needs to take care of things first. They get it.
It's so true. It's so true. Like, I think that that's such a great point, and something I talk about too is like, just be a normal person. Like, I mean, normal in that, like, you don't have to talk to your kids in some like weird way, like, or some, I don't know, like, I can see you're feeling very upset, like, or some robotic way or whatever. It's like, just be you, like, just talk to them as you, obviously within like, appropriate limitations, but like, I think that, again, like moving away from this idea that we have to somehow be perfect, like, and that if we make mistakes, or that if we show emotion, or if we have a bad day, or if we're upset, that we have to like completely shield our children from that. That's not going to be helpful, because let me tell you, like, kids will pick up on anything. Like, my daughter knows when my period is going to start before I know my period. Like, it's like an unbelievable, like, what they can pick up on. Like, it's such a strong energy and attachment, which is so amazing, but it also means you don't get a break. But it's like, but I think if it can relieve you of that pressure to feel like, oh, I have to be this way all the time, and that's not fair. Like, that's not something that we should be teaching them, because that's not reality. And if your kid grows up thinking that everything should just be okay all the time, like, it's going to be harsh reality check when they find out that's not true. And so, again, it's not like you need to show them the hard knocks all the time. It's just like, it's trying to balance out between, like, this is what a human being looks like, and this is how I use my tools. Like, this is how, and when I get mad or I get upset, this is how I repair, and this is how I, and you're modeling all of that for them. But it's not just modeling perfection. And it's such a relief when you can just take yourself off the hook for that, because you don't have to do that. You really don't have to do that. So yeah, that's a big thing I would say too, is just you don't have to be that picture perfect mom. That picture perfect, she doesn't exist, and if she does, there's a lot of problems.
Yeah, because no one's perfect, right? No one wants a perfect ideal person.
Yeah, I mean, and if you are that, like, I don't know, like, I gotta feel like there's something going on that you're just not looking at, because it's like, it's just not that easy. It's not gonna work out that well. So,
right.
So yeah, giving yourself like massive breaks. And listen, the good is that your whole life changes. I mean, it is, I think it is the good, the bad, the ugly. Like that's parenting in a nutshell. It's all of those things. And sometimes it's all of those things like all in the same moment, because it's just this experience that you go through that's like, I can be so upset and frustrated, but I've also never loved anything more in my entire life in the same moment. So it's just a lot of different conflicting, sometimes information that might feel like it contradicts itself, but it's all amazing. And then you can laugh about it. And one of the things I always say, it's like getting together with other moms and just like laughing about like the craziness that is parenting and motherhood is amazing. Having a sense of humor about it is key. You have to, like, sometimes I just pretend like I'm watching a TV show, like, and I'm like, I don't know how I got in this TV show, but somehow like I'm watching something unfold, and I feel like it's just woof, like, it's so it's finding ways to like have fun with it, because you have to. I mean, you can't take it that seriously. Otherwise you're just go crazy. So it's and sometimes you're not able to do that until you step back from it a little bit. That doesn't happen immediately in the moment, but it can be so much fun. And it's all the things. It's like all the feelings.
Well, thank you, Sasha, for your time, for your insights. This was so fun. Can you tell us where we can find you, connect with you?
Yes. So I am on Instagram at my handle is at the Realistic Parent page, and you can find out all sorts of things. But there'll be links to my programs and just ways to get in touch with me personally. And you also just go to my website, which is just sashahawks.com, HAWKES, and it'll have all my info up there and all the stuff that you can contact me for. And I do, like I said, I do therapy in the state of California. I do coaching, and this birth and pregnancy trauma program. So there's lots of different options. I'm also on Facebook. It's Sasha Hawks at the Realistic Parent. So that's my Facebook group page there, and there's also links there to find me and all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sasha.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. It was really fun.